Cars coming around to start the Radical Australia Cup race, their second race for this weekend. Past the Dunlop sign, quite appropriately these cars shod with the Radical International Dunlop control tyre. And we've got a bit of quick news out of the pit straight in. Winslow has withdrawn. Tony Shebeki right on the start of this race. Alongside me here as we see the field, compact field, streaming their way down to turn one.
It certainly is, Daz. Good morning to you. Good morning, everybody. Kim Burke is our man out front up to turn one. Simon Haggerty also. John Paul Drake was up the front of the grid, now towards the back. As you said, with James Winslow pulling out for the remainder of the day, it'll be John Paul Drake's car. What a great drive by James Winslow yesterday to get that car into pole position. And from lap one of him stepping into it, effectively, he was hot to trot.
Yeah, certainly James Winslow comes with a very tidy CV to when he jumps into any race car, and he drove very well yesterday. Obviously jumping out, John Paul Drake's going to do the entire 250 minutes today, and we'll see how that starts to transpire. So Kim Burke started out of pole. It was Simon Haggerty, Tony Haggerty, Chris Perini, who had a win at the last round at Taylor Bend, as did Brad and Mitch Neilson as well, the rookies from last year. Rowan Ross got a bit of damage, and we see the number 6, the Tony Haggerty car, has gone around, and that looks to be down at the site where we just saw Chelsea Angelo, and a big lock up there by the number 38, which is Brad Neilson, currently in P2, so pushing pretty hard there early doors. So coming onto the main straight for the first time, you see that car go down around there. So Tony Haggerty, here we see it. It's on the exit of Dandenong Road there. A little bit of evasive action from the cars behind, but Tony was running right up as far as second before that happened. But on the exit, as opposed to the entry, like we've just seen in the Porsche Michelin GT3 Cup Challenge race, and we'll pick it up and continue on as Kim Burke leads the way up the back straight. It'll be Simon Haggerty in the second of the HRT, the Haggerty Racing Team Radicals, going up the hill under the Shell V-Power. Again, the control fuel of the Radical races right around the world. Talking about right around the world with the Radical races, great opportunity for the champion this year to go and race at Monza, of all places. So you win the local domestic series here at the Radical Australia Cup and head over to Monza. And at the moment, that could be Kim Burke, who's had a great start to 2018 with a big swag of points for him, and he's obviously still in front of the championship, and with the 250-minute races today, a big chance to increase that lead over Chris Perini, who is just behind in second place. Peter Patton is a missing driver this weekend. Loves Sandown, had a fantastic year last year here at Sandown for Peter Patton. Not here this weekend, and once again that just gives an opportunity for Kim Burke to get full maximum points over the 2 races, even more impetus. John Paul Drake running down in 5th at the moment. We'd probably expect JP to push up a little bit further at the moment, doing dual duties in this weekend, running in the prototype category as well. But Kim Burke, I guess, without Peter Patton being here this weekend, would be the favourite as he crests the top of the hill here at Sandown and dips down. So at the moment, Kim Burke is fastest on track and is setting fastest sectors. Having said that, the second sector, which they've just completed, the car right behind there, car number 5, with Simon Haggerty, has set the fastest second sector of the weekend so far. So they're looking to be breaking records. You'd have to suggest, I guess, the ambient cold temperature is not giving the track the heat it needs into it, but these cold conditions are giving the little 1300cc Hayabusa motorcycle-based engines. They're certainly Radical Power engine, but they're based on that Hayabusa power plant. This would be ideal. Nice high revs, really cool, dense air, and a good explosion in the combustion chamber will be giving these guys every bit of performance they need. It may just be that it's going to be the sort of first 4 to 5 laps before the Dunlops get right up to speed, but pretty impressive times already this early. A little bit of housekeeping for the Radical Australia Cup as this round will start to unfold. The compulsory pit stop window for both their races today will open 15 minutes after the commencement of the race. So we'll see the pit stop window open at that stage, and then we'll close at the 35-minute mark. Each car has to be across the control line in the pit lane before that 35-minute mark closes the pit lane. So we have seen in recent times a couple of drivers miss that opportunity, just concentrating with the race at hand. So they'll be getting told to come in as well. So it has to come to a complete stop and engine switched off, as we've got a spinner, and that is the 88 of Rowan Ross. So he had a big bit of damage at Tailem Bend. They didn't think the car was going to get back out, and it did. Only did 3 laps in the last race, but it did get rolling again. There's a fair old whack with the wall there too. So he looks like he's trying to get things going again. Top of the hill, boy, almost picture perfect of what Chelsea Angelo did. Had a wobble, tried to correct it, did all the right things from inside the car, was looking where he wanted to go, but gave the fence a fair old clout. Now, these are particularly purpose-built race cars. They're not designed to hit walls like that, so that will have given a good bit of at least front steering damage on the front left there. And they'll be covering it with local yellows, and the yellows are being waved right at the top of the hill here. So if anyone's trying to do a passing manoeuvre, not that anyone is at the top of the hill at the moment, there's the yellow flag there, and Rowan's actually got the car going again. Now it looks as though he's hasn't got it
to be.
Yeah, he hasn't got it motivated. He doesn't look to be beached there, so it doesn't look like the car's bottomed out, but I dare say he's gesticulating quite heavily. Now he's got reverse. Now he'll get beached. No, the field continues on. So they haven't had to throw the safety car and nullify this race yet, but Rowan doesn't look particularly happy in the car there.
Well, the other thing is too, you wouldn't want to keep Rowan in the car for the next 43 minutes.
No, and they don't want to leave the car where it is there for the next 43 minutes. It looks like he's moved it forward and he's moved it back. So let's
give him a bit of opportunity to get out of there.
Yeah. Well, it's been covered by double wave. So the drivers now have to show that they've executed caution down into that part of the track, and let's face it, that's probably the riskiest part of the Sandown International Raceway racetrack, probably the second to this part here, which is the high-speed end of the front straight there at turn 1.
John Paul Drake was just on screen. Here's a good little battle, though, up the front between Kim Burke and Simon Haggerty. Only a second separating these two, and you can see that visually on the screen as we speak. Chris Perini in the background. He'll also want to have a great round this weekend with the 2 50-minute races, this one and the next one to come this afternoon, to keep his hopes of a championship alive. Currently will be in second place in the championship behind Kim Burke. And good news for Ryan Ross is that he's been able to get that car out and bring it back to pit lane. Straight out the back.
Fortunately for Rowan, the second round in a row, the RAC crew are going to have to swing into action and get that car rectified and get it out there and running again. So just having a quick hark back into this round last year. In qualifying, it was James Winslow, as it was in this round as well. Kim Burke qualified ultimately after the 2 qualifying sessions on the front row as well. But Pete Padden took race 1 and race 2 and ultimately took the 90 points away from the first round here at Sandown last year, and started fairly, was midway through his lot of success with 2 races at Mount Panorama and 2 races here at Sandown in the first race at Phillip Island. It was a really strong showing. He lost the second race to Michael Shaw during at Phillip Island, then the last 4 races at Sydney Motorsport Park, and then at Highlands were Peter Padden. So a really, really strong year for Pete to take the title last year. Good look into Simon Haggerty there. He's not letting the race leader Kim Burke, and these guys have been racing each other for the best part of 9 seasons now. They know each other well. No Ollie Smith this year, which is interesting because Ollie's been quite the bridesmaid to Peter Padden over the last 2 seasons. But Kim Burke stepped into that void, I guess, and now is the
And some might say Kim Burke was the bridesmaid to Peter Padden for the seasons before that, as well, especially in 2015, without a doubt. But the good news, as we said, for Kim Burke is he leads the championship, 124 points for him for 2018 for the first 2 rounds, which included Bathurst and Tailem Bend round 3 here this weekend at Sandown. Chris Medland currently in second place on 87 points, Chris Perini on 86. And the good news for Chris Perini is Chris Medland isn't here this weekend either, so that gives Perini that opportunity to take an outright second place. Tony Haggerty in fourth, Peter Patton down in fifth place, also not here this weekend as well. They're our top five for the RAC 2018 Championship.
The flag is down there gesticulating with their arms to the crews. They're not sure what that was about, whether that was just a Mediterranean-based conversation going on between flaggies down there with hand signals. But certainly caught my eye as they came around through there, so just keep an eye out for something down at Dandenong Road that's not quite right. Kim Burke coming out the final corner and coming across the line to complete lap number 8. 50 minutes is the journey for this one. Let's just have a quick look back into the Illuminati of the Radical Australia Cup. 2009 was one run by Glenn Edis. Wasn't run as part of the Shannons Nationals in 2009, but then in 2010 joined the national tour, and Peter Opie came bursting onto the scene and was really strong all year long and was quite entertaining. The left-hand sweeper right past the bridge at Morgan Park was that year. He was just drifting the car through there all weekend long. It was rapid. Ed Singleton, who we saw at the last round at Taylor Bend driving in his Group C STP Roadways Commodore, took the title in 2011, and then Neil Mustin started his two-season domination in 2012 and 2013. 2014 saw Tim Berryman win the SR8 and Michael Shaw win the SR3 aspect, so the two cars, the SR8 being the V8. The Radical Australia Cup, in fact the International Radical Cup, is now being run exclusively for the SR3s. And we're seeing an SR8 running here this weekend in the prototype series as well. So 2015, Peter Patton took out the title, and it was 2016 and had some great success in this category, but it seems to be a bit of a changing of the guard.
It took last year as well, so 3 in a row for Peter Patton in regards to Radical Championships. And that year where we mentioned in 2015, Kim Burke second to Peter Patton in that year. He was second in 2014 as well, behind Michael Shaw in the SR3 category. So a couple of bridesmaids seconds to Kim Burke. He'll be looking to change that this week. But one man that's going to make sure he's going to keep him honest is Simon Haggerty, who
isn't he? Keeps
right up with him, 0.6 of a second. Now the gap between these two, it's been anywhere between half a second and 1 second, so it's consistent.
Simon Haggerty setting fastest second sector on this lap, so that's why that gap's come back down to 0.4 of a second. So a real good push here for Simon Haggerty. He's let the car come to him, and I'm just wondering if it had a lower set of tyre pressures than what the Kim Burke car did, so taking the best part of 10 to 12 minutes to get the tyres up to that optimum pressure, and now he's being able to push hard. So a different approach engineering-wise, although apart from that, these cars are absolutely identical. Come down into turn 1. It's great shots from pit lane with the crews down there. There's Talia Neilson, who manages a lot of the behind-the-scene things with the Radical Australia Cup there, working hard. Everyone look at their iPhones. Used to be stopwatches, now it's iPhones, isn't it? You've got every single app on your phone. They're all watching, they're not waiting for a call. I bet you they've got their stopwatch.
They'll have that soft time system.
Yeah, that's it. They'll be
watching
sort of watching everything. Just going back to a little bit of that housekeeping side of things. So there is success equalisation in the Radical Australia Cup Championship. So John Paul Drake in the number 66 has got a 45-second compulsory success equalisation stop there. It was to be longer with James Winslow, and because of his success at the last round and because of his ranking as a racer. So I dare say that's why James Winslow's actually been withdrawn from that car. Brad and Mitch Neilson will have a 25-second added to their 85 seconds already in pit lane. Chris Perini will have 20 seconds added to his compulsory 80-second stop. Kim Burke, now this is the real interesting one. Race leader, 75 seconds CPS with only 15 added seconds. So he's got a great advantage coming into the compulsory pit stop. Simon Haggerty has got 75 and 15 as well, which is fantastic for us because they're the two cars that are a line astern with each other in this race, and their pit stop time is exactly the same.
So we just hope that they actually follow each other into pits and they just continue to go. It'll be good to see.
It's really unprofessional for a commentator to barrack for someone, but at the moment I'd love to see Simon Haggerty just lead a lap or two. You could take a photo of the timing screen and send it down to him, because him and his dad Tony have been at this for as long as Kim Burke has. So to lead a lap here and there would be absolutely fantastic. And Rowan Ross, who we've already seen have a bit of a clout with the wall and has gone back behind the garages to have a look at that car. He only had a 60-second penalty there because he did have an accident, a crash at the previous round at Tailem Bend. Will only have a 60-second stop. I guess that's been negated because he spent the best part of 2 laps trying to get the car back out into the race off the wall.
So we continue around with 35 minutes to go, or just under now, for the Radical Australia Cup, and the compulsory pit stop window is now open. Chris Papadopoulos there on the left, part of the Radical team out of Sydney Motorsport Park.
A bit of an update out of our people down in the pit lane. It looks like the uprights on the Rowan Ross car are bent, and that is not a real quick changeover. I wouldn't suspect. It might be 50 minutes to do it, but we're already 10 minutes into the 50-minute race, so they'll have the spares available down there, and let's hope that they can sling it on before the second of the Radical Australian Cup race. Got plenty of time. That's not until 2 o'clock this afternoon for the second race. So the crew assessing things down there to be able to get Rowan Ross back out there. Great shots coming out of Dandenong Road. They're right over the shoulder almost of Simon Haggerty onto the dash there, the Motec type LCD screen there, feeding all the information back. Oh, and our leader in.
Yep.
So,
and Haggerty stays out, so get your camera ready.
Kim Burke, yeah, let's get a photo of the screenshot of the race leader. Now Simon Haggerty, Chris Perini. Bit of a gap back now to Chris Perini, just under 4 seconds. So compulsory pit stop, engine turned off. We're just seeing the RAC crew going to work. A bit of tyre deflation, just making sure they're back to a normal level to continue on with the remaining 33 minutes in this race. So just dropping them. I suspect what they're doing is dropping them back or just getting a gauge on what they are, and if they're at that operating window, then they'll be left alone. So we're seeing the air being bled out there, which is absolutely totally normal procedure for a race with a pit stop in it. And of course, they're quite a technical piece of kit, the Radical SR3RS. That's what we're seeing, the most up-to-date outfits being run. And most of the teams are running the newest, the greatest and newest this weekend. So Kim Burke, Chris Perini and Rowan Ross all in the new cars. Our race leader is coming in. Was that Perini? Yep, that's Chris Perini coming in. Kim Burke heading out in the number 66.
John Paul Drake also in with Chris Perini as well. So those two guys following each other.
So the number 68, this is the Kim Burke car. So this is the current SR3 RSX that we're going to be putting a bit of a spotlight on throughout today's racing. Just giving everyone the details there. So great, seeing the 66 rejoining. So John Paul Drake had quite a short pit stop. So JP was 5 seconds. There was that success for James Winslow. So James Winslow not jumping into that car, so he'll get his normal ranking. So at the moment, 1 square cleanse, we're actually seeing on screen now that will probably end up being the race lead. Currently for 5th, 6th and 7th on the road. There's Chris Perini sitting there, just having a bit of a blink, getting his eyes wide open. Bit of a rest there. It's a long blink just to get the eyes rested.
Just a micro sleep.
Yeah, well, we hear many times crew members getting on the radio to their drivers saying, "Breathe, have a breath, get some air back in the lungs," and that's pretty much what is going on here right now as well. So, just having a quick focus on the Radical SR3 RSX. It's a 2-seater carbon steel space frame, full FIA safety cell and an aluminium front crash structure. So as far as the world of motorsport goes, it's the full spec FIA crash structure. So I think you're nice and safe inside that outfit there. 6-piece lightweight fiberglass body with side skirts, side pods, and a composite tail. Lots of downforce through the aluminium biplane rear wing. As I mentioned before, the RPE Suzuki 1500cc 4-cylinder Hayabusa, and the RSXs now have the generation 3 of that power plant. 1500cc, 260 brake horsepower at 9,500 RPM. So good high revs, just that good scream that you hear the cars coming by. So really designates that note. Doesn't sound quite like a superbike because it runs into a muffler or into an exhaust system, so it gives it a different note to say a Hayabusa coming screaming down the straight here at Sandown at the Shannons Nationals.
Here's the important stat though, Des. 0 to 100 in.
0 to 100 in 3.1 seconds. And the other thing is that some of these cars have got, most of them now have got the paddle shift. Some have still got the gear stick shift, and that's all important too, because getting through that gearbox is very important. It's a 6-speed sequential transverse paddle-mounted pneumatic, so air-operated type shift, like we see with the Lamborghini Huracan. That real positive gear change. It's an air-operated ram. A quake-type torque biasing limited slip diff is a standard issue in any serious racing car these days. 4-spot calipers on the front, big set of 8-inch on the front, 10.5 on the rear. Dunlop control tyres, and as I mentioned, the full function LCD screen giving all the details that the drivers. Sometimes too much information for the drivers. A lot of the time they just want to tacho, and most of the time they won't want to speed up because who wants to know that? That's almost irrelevant information. The important stuff now, the suspension, what makes it really a purpose-built racing car. So Tony Haggerty in the lane now, and that will complete our pit stops. No, it won't. No, Mitch Neilson is still to come in. So the suspension, fully adjustable, Nick Link system, front and rear with unequal length top and bottom wishbones, fabricated uprights, forged centre lock hubs and interchangeable anti-roll bars. AVO Intrax Racing dampers, so fully adjustable XYZ type dampers. 77-litre tank. So years gone by, some of the RSC races when we had the SR8s running were only 45 minutes. Still had a 70-litre tank, so the 2.7-litre V8 petrol engine used a bit much fuel, so they have to bring it back to 45 minutes. Now that people know the 70 litres goes the full distance with the 1500cc 4 cylinders, albeit that they're still revving to 9,500 revs. At that point, is a bit of juice.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And right on the 50-minute mark for these tanks, one would think, with just a little bit to spare. Mitch Neilson remains our leader here, but he hasn't had his compulsory pit stop. And window remains open, so he'll be able to do that shortly. Tony Haggerty now starts to make his way out of pit lane. And Simon Haggerty in second place. John Paul Drake third. Kim Burke. Chris Perini also there as well.
The other thing with the Radical Australia organisation is there's plenty of opportunities to go racing. 6 rounds here with the Radical Australia Cup. If you don't want to go racing on a national serious calendar, then the Supersport Series, which is run as part of the New South Wales State Championship, there's 6 rounds there to do for that, and then there's 6 track days throughout the year at Sydney Motorsport Park, and there's other various tracks that they run a couple of days off through the year. As we see the leaderboard there, Chris Perini, Tony Haggerty, Rowan Ross, who's not taking any further part at this stage in the race. So there's effectively, actually up from pit stop, Simon Haggerty will remain in the lead. So this is actually 1, 2 and 3 on the road.
But I'll tell you what, 1, 2 and 3 on the road, look how close they are, half a second between the 3 of them. Haggerty, John Paul Drake and Kim Burke. Chris Perini then a further 10 seconds back in effectively 4th place. Be interesting to see though, Mitch Neilson's now come into the lane. He's got a 1.5 lap gap between him and Simon Haggerty, so be interested to see how this pans out for Mitch Neilson.
So they'll be in the lane.
We have a spinner, and that is John Paul Drake. That's going to hurt his chances.
Lost a bit of concentration there. It was sitting in a good striking distance for the lead. So just looking at the number 38, the Neilson car, 85 and a 25 equalisation. So here it is, Kim Burke coming up onto the back of, and there goes John Paul Drake. Costly mistake.
Yeah.
Costly mistake.
Kim Burke pretty happy with it though.
Shots from pit lane. And this is
so Mitch hands over to Brad.
Neilson just about getting ready to go in.
Start the engine, start the engine.
Chris Papadopoulos barking orders, making sure everything's all right. Doing a couple of little aero tweaks on the front of the car there as well. And gee, look at the 1, 2, 3 people timing the pit stop, making sure that John Paul Drake's stationary for the right amount of time.
Well, the last thing you'd want is for the stewards to penalise you because you missed out by 1 second.
Pretty cool colour, isn't it? That
nice
carbon grey.
Yeah.
Bit of a job for the kids with the grey LEDs to colour that in. There's something to do on your school holidays, kids. We're going to colour the car in grey LEDs. And continues out into the lane. So that is all of the field. Completed the pit stops. And they've done them very, very early because we've still got another 10 minutes of pit stop window opening. So all running a fairly similar get-in type program.
Mitch Neilson comes back out onto the track behind Chris Perini, so that puts him down in 5th place. So Simon Haggerty, our leader, ahead of Kim Burke. 1.5 second gap on the timesheets. It looks a little bit closer though, as you can see our vision on the screen. John Paul Drake then back in 3rd place, suffering a little bit of a spin only a lap or 2 ago, sending him back a fraction, and now 11 seconds off Kim Burke. Chris Perini right behind John Paul Drake, and then Brad Neilson making up our top 5. Tony Haggerty in 6th. Rowan Ross won't take any further part in this race, we wouldn't have thought. Probably get himself ready for race 2 this afternoon.
Yeah, certainly. They'll have a bit of work to do for the second race meeting in a row. I think Rowan Ross has probably gone the last 8 seasons, and all he's put on it is brake pads and tyres. In the last 2 races, it's all
so bad,
coming undone, unfortunately, for him. So let's hope he's banked a bit of a fighting fund to be able to perfect those repairs. I know at Tail and Bend the car is all but consigned to being shoveled back into the truck, but the crew worked so hard to get that car back out, and full credit to the crew that worked on Rowan Ross's car at Tail and Bend. They got it back out and were able to continue, albeit only for 3 further laps. So they did get the car out, and the big advantage, which we actually discussed yesterday, didn't we, Tone, that it was able to be driven into the truck rather than shoveled in.
Yeah, made it a lot easier. 2 sets of greens for each round for these cars, so we're using one here in this race, and of course one later on this afternoon.
You wouldn't expect that these cars would be too hard on the tyres. It's at about this point now that John Paul Drake's at where the load starts to come into it, where the tyres really do start to come into their own. A controlled Dunlop tyre, and it's an international specification tyre. So the factory in England say, this is the tyre you run, we'll send them over to you. And that's what they do. And the cars do, with 2 sets of tyres, with their qualifying that they do and practice on Friday, they last quite well. They sometimes even have enough rubber on the tyres to do a test day as well, and be able to settle them before the next round. So an international formula, so any data anywhere around the world is shared with all the tyres. In fact, the whole thing, so they can actually delve into any other race drivers' data, albeit that there are some setup secrets which are kept to individual drivers. Oh, we've got Tony Haggerty off again now down there. Looks like he's had a bit of a lock-up on the turn-in. He was pretty much running all by himself down there, Tony. So he's having a torrid old time out there at the moment. Normally, Tony and Simon run pretty much line astern with each other, and that's a father and son race team. And
definitely not the case.
Not today.
Today, with Simon currently leading the race, Tony down in 6th place. I tell you what, this is a good little battle here, mid-pack. John Paul Drake in 3rd, Chris Perini in 4th place. Just under a second separating the two of them as they start to make their way around the top end of the track down Dandenong Road, Princess Highway, and the left-hand turn into the main straight. And they'll get to do it all again. So far, 22 laps have been completed in this race. It is a timed race, 50 minutes. And we have 20 of those 50 remaining.
Interestingly enough, Kim Burke at the moment is churning out the fastest sectors, but each sector has gone to a different driver. The first sector, one of the Neilson boys is fastest. The next one is Simon Haggerty, and the last sector is John Paul Drake. So we haven't had someone to be able to line up that theoretical best time of a 1:12.87. In fact, no one's been even able to nudge down into the 12s. The closest to that is Kim Burke at the moment. No, sorry, yeah, it's not. It is Brad Neilson who's got the fastest lap of the race, and that's a 1:13.45. So come around past the Dunlop control tyre sign. Kim Burke's last time round was 1.1 second gap, and it's certainly closed, and it has to 0.9. We get a great look right across the front of Simon Haggerty's car there, and we also get to see how those undulations in the main straight here at Sandown really start to run amok with some of these prototype cars. They bobble around, very, very stiffly sprung cars, and that they have to do that so they can gain the full aero of the car.
Simon Haggerty's had a, I would say, fairly distinguished career in the Radical Australia Cup. Third in the championship back in 2011, 12 and 13. So definitely been thereabouts over his time in the RAC.
Been doing it for quite a while, and we've seen him go round exiting Dandenong Road, so he's relinquished the lead. A very rare mistake from Simon Haggerty, and Kim Burke goes through. They have himself about a 5 or 6 second lead after that. Turned around down at Dandenong Road, so you'd have to think that the pace that Kim Burke's had on. Here we go. Comes down there. All looking pretty neat and tidy. Where did it go wrong? Oh, just turn in, oversteer, and that'll catch you out every single time. So maybe just turn in a little bit earlier than what he has been, getting a little bit rattled by the pressure of Kim Burke. He said that Kim Burke was a fair way off. It wasn't right like he was right up under the rear wing there.
Pretty much the same as what happened to John Paul Drake, in exactly the same spot.
It is. The turn in, that's so stiffly sprung, you hit a bump and it upsets the whole car, and around you go. Sandown International, a little bit of a patchwork these days, with little bits and pieces of the track that have had resurfaces and repairs.
And that's probably all that'll happen to it for the next couple of years.
You'd expect so, yeah. And these bumps we're starting to see. We'll obviously be seeing the Australian production cars coming up. We won't see it so much with those cars because they've got a lot more spring, a lot more ground clearance, suspension travel. These things not so much. We see them start to bobble around a little bit. And
notice it on the open wheelers too, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah. Formula 3s and Formula 4s and stuff like that. They'll actually touch. Send sparks out as the sacrificial titanium plates grab the ground.
I'm tipping an F5000 wouldn't go around the 107s nowadays around Sandown.
Yeah, it would. Yeah. Well, the lap record Tom Tweedy set was only a couple of years ago. Yeah, 2013. Yeah, in the Chevron B24.
Oh, 105.
28. Yeah. So track's unchanged since 2013.
Carl Reindler in a Radical back in 2005, 107.99 in the R8 back then. Had a chat to him about that yesterday. He said he was actually lapping, lapping a couple of seconds faster than a supercar here at Sandown. And he believes that the car probably had a bit more to give too. He just didn't have the want to give it.
The extra required. I'll tell you what, if Carl didn't, there'd be very few others that did. So got to take his word for it. Absolute authority in that respect. Gee, I tell you what, Chris Perini has got John Paul Drake lined up here. He has got awesome drive out of turn 4. The John Paul Drake car has certainly got the horsepower to pull it up the hill. I wonder if there's a different rear wing setting on these cars where the drag has been taken out of the back of John Paul Drake's car, whereas Perini has got a bit more coming through those corners.
Just get the feeling that John Paul Drake has a little bit more of the straight line. Yeah. Without a doubt, because he seems, if you look at the times in Sector 2, he picks up 0.1, 0.2 of a second through that back straight and then does pretty much the same down the front straight. So,
and then the raw wing, like I was saying, the rear wing might have a more angle of attack on it, so it's just slowing the Perini car down or giving the John Paul Drake car more effective air through there. We saw it yesterday on the GTs with the Walkinshaw car with Liam Talbot at the wheel, and they gave that car almost no wing at all. And that was when Liam went out. It was a hairy old lap with not a lot of tail end grip, but certainly the two long straights here. You don't need wings in the straights. No. In fact, Formula One have a thing called a DRS, an anti-drag system, and they flip the wing up, and it allows the car through the air a lot quicker.
Remained a good battle for the last few laps between these two. We'll wait to see if Chris Perini can get the job done on John Paul Drake. He's got 15 minutes or under 14 and a half to do it.
So compulsory pit stop window has been closed now at the 35-minute mark. And we do have just under 15 minutes left to go. Everyone seems to be settled down into a pretty good groove at the moment. Kim Burke has a 4.8-second lead over Simon Haggerty. That's a further 7 seconds back to the battle that we're watching there with John Paul Drake and Chris Perini.
Brad Neilson back in 5th, Tony Haggerty in 6th place. They are the cars on the track. With just under 14 to go now, Kim Burke making this race his own.
Kim Burke, Simon Haggerty, John Paul Drake, Chris Perini, Brad Neilson at the wheel now of the 38, and Tony Haggerty, Rowan Ross with damage after a clout with the wall down at Dandenong Road.
Once again, back to that battle pack for 3rd and 4th. John Paul Drake in the multi-coloured car up the front. Chris Perini in the grey. What are we calling that?
Carbon grey.
Carbon grey, yeah, that'll do.
HB pencil carbon grey.
Nice looking car, whatever you want to call it.
It really is a smart looking colour.
Still sitting that half a second off in 4th place. Actually, John Paul Drake's been able to grab a little bit of time in that last lap, and that half a second has now gone out to 1.1. So a little bit of a break there for John Paul Drake, and a little bit of breathing space, I suppose you could say as well, which is a massive advantage for him, because Chris Perini has been absolutely breathing down his neck for the last 10 or so laps. They've completed 28, a 50-minute timed race, 37.5 down, 12.5 remain here at Sandown. Race 1 of the weekend for the Radical Australia Cup.
So the Radicals go for the Radical Australia Cup from here to Phillip Island on the 1st, 2nd and 3rd of June as part of the Shannons Nationals. Then Sydney Motorsport Park again with the Shannons Nationals on the 21st, 22nd and 23rd of September. And they do have a round 6 calendared with a bit of TBC in front of that. Last year they went over and finished the Radical Australia Cup in New Zealand at Highlands Motorsport Park. The GTs aren't doing that this year, so I don't think that'll be where that is. So could end up seeing them back at Sydney Motorsport Park. Could go to Hampton Downs,
so the GTs are doing Hampton Downs.
Hampton Downs, yeah. Which I think is starting to swing into the international formula of what SRO are trying to do with GT. We'll confirm that with Matt Koch, I'm sure, throughout today. We've got GTs here today. In fact, they're on track next for their next race on this round of the Sprint and Trophy Series.
It's a big fortnight of racing in New Zealand that weekend, or that effective 7 days. You've got the weekend of the GTs at Hampton Downs, and then just down the road at Pukekohe, a weekend later, you've got the supercars coming to town.
Yeah, certainly all the Aussies go over and sink the island, don't they?
Yeah.
So, Brad Neilson currently in 5th, Tony Haggerty there as well. Simon Burke leading the way. Kim Burke leading the way to Simon Haggerty and John Paul Drake. Just keeping an eye on that gap. 0.8, still under a second between John Paul Drake and Chris Perini. So here they are coming onto the straight with just over 10 minutes remaining in the first race for the RAC here this weekend. Kim Burke dipping it into turn 1. He's got a nice clear bit of track in front of him, hasn't he? Able to put the car right where he wants to. This is about the time of the race where these races start to get a little bit tired, a little bit stiff, a little bit sore. Hands start to get cramped after hanging onto the steering wheel. It's about now where you release the wheel and just stretch the fingers out. Give your toes a little bit of a wiggle as you go up the back straight and get the concentration right back up, because it's about now where something untoward may happen. And our race leader with a good 3.5, well over 3.5 seconds, is you're not going to make a mistake because you're being pressured at the moment. You're going to make a mistake because you're starting to feel it.
Simon Haggerty will be worrying what could have been, I would think, with that little bit of a back end spin out for him. Only 5 or 10 minutes ago, because the gap between himself and Kim Burke was out to 6 seconds. It's now down to 3.5, and Simon Haggerty was leading the race, but he just went a bit sideways. So, yeah, missed opportunity, one would think, possibly for Simon Haggerty, but a great opportunity here for Chris Perini.
This is getting real between these two now. That's the closest he's been, and in the slipstream, drawing up into the braking area. The 81 is starting to think, well, I'm going to make a play for this podium.
You know, there's a serious opportunity to pass when you start seeing the guy behind go left and right and just looking.
Darting in and out, trying
just
to
looking for
weave
something.
Around. Here's a bit of carbon black in your left mirror. Here's a bit of carbon black in your right mirror.
Now you see me. Now you don't.
Yeah, and I'm surprised the lights aren't on there. He doesn't have any light colours on. Looks like the LEDs are fully intact there. Here we go. This is it. This is a big, long run up the back. Gee, look how evenly matched they are. Looks out.
Here we go.
There's no way you're going to go around the outside there. Well, there is. We're seeing a few brave ones do it. Kane Rose used to do it in the Porsches.
So Chris Perini working his way around the top end of the track. Will set himself up again for another drag down the main straight with 8 minutes to go. Effectively, probably 6 laps. You'll want to do that pretty quick. Otherwise, time will run out. So come back onto the main straight. This is for 3rd and 4th. John Paul Drake in the multicoloured car in front.
He's actually not as close as what he was last lap around, and it's only a car length. But certainly just opening it up for the last lap around a 14.2 and a 14.4, so yes, 0.2 of a second further back. Here he is now. Perini dive up the inside here. Maybe a little bit far back. Here's the run up the back straight again. Wants to try and position himself on the right-hand side of the track, so he tips in first into the very, very fast, hairy left-hander at the top of the straight.
And once again, I would say that he's probably not as close as he was at this point than he was in the last lap. So he'll just have to bide his time again, Chris Perini.
Well, they've both got completely and utterly different strengths. These cars are identical, but they're both exerting their strengths at different parts of the track. Again, I think it's just something to do with the aero package that they've set themselves up with here, because it is certainly a straight line thing. Drake just getting out of the corner and up the straight, being able to hold him off. Now Chris Perini comes into turn 1. Will be all over the back of him again by turn 2, because they're almost identical as they have been the last 3 laps. Let's see under brakes down here. Look at him close up.
Yeah, right up to him.
Strong drive by both these cars. So John Paul Drake's got some more racing to do as well this weekend.
He has too, of course, in the prototypes. Let's have a look at them now as they start to make their way back up the back straight again. And Perini just a fraction closer than he was last lap, and probably in a much better position to go for an inside run up to the top. No. But the pressure was on for John Paul Drake. Cut the corner but stayed in front.
He survived that. Many wouldn't. many wouldn't. He may lose a spot because he's lost the flow coming out of Dandenong Road. Look at that. Perini down the inside. There's your opportunity. I actually think Chris Perini saw that and maybe even got out of it and went, I don't want to be part of what's going on there, because that could have come darting right across in front of him again. Get the feeling that John Paul Drake's just giving the belts a bit of a pull down. Right alongside now, so it was a moment heading into Dandenong Road for the number 66. He's going to relinquish that spot.
I don't know if he will. He's got the inside run, John Paul Drake, and he'll be able to hold it. I think he does.
Perini strong still. Looking down. He's got himself the wrong side of the track there. Not going to be able to execute it there, but let's hope he can get wide and get a little bit of a nose up into turn 4 here. They head into Pertec. No. Drive again. Let's have a look at that again. Here we go. Number 66. He survived it. Oh. Wow, he survived that. That is, will be chalked up as one of the very few that didn't go round or end up in some sort of strife, particularly in these flat bottom type aero bottom cars. They're on again. Perini says, well, if you're going to do that, you might do it again. I'll be ready for you. And it looks like Perini's gone the wide run out of Dandenong Road. That'll give him great speed up to the next right-hander. It's going to be covered off nicely, though, by John Paul Drake. Look at the 81, Tony, just darting in and out.
He's getting frustrated now, isn't he? He had his chance, Chris Perini, but the experience of John Paul Drake able to hold him off.
The other thing here is that Simon Haggerty has been chipping away at the lead of Kim Burke. It's down to 1.8 seconds, so he's dragged a couple of seconds out of that over the last little while, but this is the battle. This is actually for the last spot on the podium. Third in the race is John Paul Drake in that multicoloured extravaganza. He loves a multicoloured extravaganza. His old West used to be the Rubik's Cube or the licorice all sort. Perini again. This is the closest he's been up to turn 4, but not being able to dive. So here we have Kim Burke in the lead. 1.8 behind is Simon Haggerty. This battle, John Paul Drake and Chris Perini. There's our race leader, number 68. Here's this battle at the top of the hill.
Still couldn't get it done.
Chris Perini will be suffering from lack of aero now because he's that close.
Suffering from massive frustration too, I would have thought, Chris Perini. He knows he's got the ability to do it, he just can't find that opportunity.
I'll tell you what though, he's filling the mirrors left and right, isn't he?
Yeah, he certainly is.
Moving the car around.
Probably with 3 minutes left on the clock, I would suggest that Chris Perini has 2, maybe 3 laps to try and get that third position on the track. The gap now, though, between our leaders, as we focus our eyes towards the top, and here they are, is 1 second between Kim Burke in the 68 and Simon Haggerty in the 5.
And it's Simon Haggerty that's coming here. It's down under a second, 0.7. Simon Haggerty has found something and is dug really deep here. Just over 2.5 minutes left. In fact, that's going to be enough at the rate of closure here at the moment with Simon Haggerty. 2.5 minutes will be enough for him to get right up behind the rear wing. Is Kim Burke going to give it up? It's not going to be a, there you go, son, drive by.
No, correct.
He's going to have to race for it.
Catching him's one thing, passing him's another.
That is true.
So as we watch 2 attempts of picking up a spot in 2 different positions, first and second here on the screen, and the same applies for third and fourth between John Paul Drake and Chris Perini.
Just watching Simon Haggerty come round through there, I reckon his tyres in better condition than what Kim Burke's. So coming onto the straight there, Kim Burke's car was fairly loose coming around. Simon's still driving like it's on rails at the moment. Let's have a look through here, how the number 68 goes, particularly exiting that corner and exiting turn 4. Let's see how he gets the power down. It looks nice and straight. Both of them look nice and straight through there. But the gap is now 0.5.
As it is for Perini behind Drake, and both these guys will have this lap and 1 more, I would think, to get the job done. And you can see Perini again at the back, all over the back of John Paul Drake. He knows the time is running out.
It's time to get willing, guys. It's time to get willing.
Chris Perini now right up and close. He's smelling exhaust fumes from John Paul Drake. Is he close enough to get a run up the outside? It's probably not the place to get it done. I wouldn't have thought.
John Paul Drake's driving very well here. He's holding a line, albeit a defensive line. He's holding it. He's actually chosen the same line for about the last 3 laps now, so he's been consistent. He can't be told that he's holding up or blocking. Look at Perini now, jumping out onto the bumps underneath the Penrite Oils Bridge and coming onto the straight this time around. So equally matched in their mechanical grip. There's just a difference in aero between these guys.
I'd be surprised if that accelerator, if Chris Perini goes through the floor, he'd be pushing it that hard.
I reckon it'd be bent over around the back of the firewall. It goes wide. This will be a brave run. And here's our race leader, you'd have to suggest, on the last lap with only 24 seconds left to go. Kim Burke can climb the hill. Their lead is back out to 0.8 of a second. This is, again, a reminder for 3rd place. John Paul Drake in the 66. Perini there in the number 81. Took a win at Tailem Bend. The car currently sitting 4th. That carbon grey and red outfit. A really smart looking livery. In fact, they've both got completely different liveries. One's as busy as that all get up, and the other one's a simple GT stripe over carbon red, isn't it? So, time is up. Let's look to the straight now. There is race leader Kim Burke. Checkered flag goes to Kim Burke, and he takes the first of the 2 50-minute races here today as part of round 2 of the Shannons Nationals. The race is on now for 3rd. What's Perini got? He's going to have huge drive out of the corner to get the run up. Looks to the inside. It's going to be side by side. How do they get to the line? We'll have to look to the timing screen to see what happens. But it will be John Paul Drake that just holds it and holds it out for 0.02 to Chris Perini. Tony, you just get the feeling that if Chris Perini had done that 3 laps ago, he might have been able to drive through. He left the run to the checkered flag. But there we have it. Kim Burke takes the first win for the Radicals for this weekend.
And takes the maximum 40 points, which is so important for his championship tilt at the moment. He is our current leader, Simon Haggerty. Takes 2nd place and 35 points to his championship amount as well. John Paul Drake in 3rd place. Chris Perini will now go to outright 2nd place in the championship as we see the results up on the screen. Kim Burke from Simon Haggerty, a 1 second gap between those two. John Paul Drake in 3rd. Chris Perini in 4th place. Brad Neilson, Tony Haggerty and Rowan Ross making up our 7 cars here at Sandown for the Radical Australia Cup this weekend.
So compact field there of Radicals, but those little battles, particularly the Kim Burke, Simon Haggerty for 1st place, and then the John Paul Drake, Chris Perini battle for 3rd as we go back 50 minutes ago in time, and this was the way the cars jumped away. All neat and tidy down through turn 1. Chris Perini avoiding there the spinning Tony Haggerty, which was early on. In fact, everyone avoiding the spinning Tony Haggerty. It was the John Paul Drake that went to the dirt on the inside there. And we covered it off. Big lock up there for the
Neilson, I think it was
Neilson car, yeah, which would probably have paid to the lack of pace towards the end of the race. Probably hurt a set of tyres. Rowan Ross spun. We held our breath briefly there, didn't we, Tone? It was a real grab of, oh, what's going to happen? He threw his hands up in the air and went, it's all over for me. I'm just sliding now. And backwards away. It took a lap or 2 for him to get back out of there and then headed away. Unfortunately, an upright vent there. The Radical Australia crew will be working very hard to get him back out. Here's Kim Burke, who ultimately was our race winner. And there goes John Paul Drake, who I guess...
So that was the first of Kim Burke's lucky breaks.
Yep.
And then it happened again.
Yep.
Right here at this point when Simon Haggerty went off as well.
In fact, that's Tony Haggerty again. Sorry. Yeah, but yeah, Simon Haggerty again. Yeah, basically, Kim Burke was a pretty lucky bloke with
here we go,
keeping it all together. This is it here. Down into there where spun around. And that was for the lead and ultimately how the race ended up. The Radical Australia Cup. Here's a real hairy moment there for JP. You don't want to do that again this weekend. Probably leave that manoeuvre. Here was the battle that we were so enthralled with right throughout the 2nd stanza of this race. The 66 and the 81. Really good racing. These guys didn't clip. They didn't touch. They just put up some strong racing. It's testament to the fact that you can have a compact field, but if you put on some good racing, it can still be very, very entertaining. And there we go to the line. Chris Perini. I just get the feeling Chris probably should have done that manoeuvre 2 laps prior.
No doubt.
And unfortunately didn't get that done, but here was our race winner, Kim Burke.